So growing up, I always enjoyed the coleslaw that came with KFC chicken. So I figured I'd share my recipe, which I think comes pretty close. So 2/3 of a cup milk, 1/3 of a cup sugar, 2 tablespoons each of lemon juice and white vinegar, half a teaspoon of salt, an eighth of a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 medium carrot, 3 tablespoons of onion, which is about 30 grams, half a cup of mayonnaise, 1 medium green cabbage or half of a large cabbage. So in other recipes I've seen buttermilk used, but I try to keep my recipes pretty simple. So in place of buttermilk, I'm going to use 2% milk and a tablespoon of white vinegar. So it's kind of a substitute that works pretty well. You want to give that a really good stir to combine. It'll thicken the milk and give it that slightly sour taste. We're going to cover that up and put it in the fridge. It's best to do this early on and put it in the fridge because it will thicken, and it needs time to do that. So it's one of the first things you do. So I have a box grater. I'm just going to grate my medium carrot. And we also have the onion, which I already pre-diced, which is a sweet Vidalia. Both the carrot and the onion shouldn't be obviously strong flavor. Dixie coleslaw is known as a kind of a sweet, creamy coleslaw, so you don't want to add too many strong flavors. But it is a nice addition to have carrot and the onion. Okay, so we'll finish that off. And then I'm just going to give it a one extra chop just to make sure it's the same size as all the other ingredients. Now if you only have a large cabbage, you can use half the cabbage, or try to find a medium or small cabbage, because this makes quite a bit if you have a large cabbage or even a large medium sized cabbage. Okay, so give that a quick stir, and we're going to set that aside for later. And here I'm taking the outer leaves off the cabbage. And I'm going to give the knife a good tap to get it started. And you want to quarter this cabbage, so just be careful. Always have a nice sharp knife. You could also cut a flat side of the cabbage just to be a little more stable on your cutting surface, but I've done this enough times, so I'm pretty used to it. Again, give the knife another tap. Generally you want to use a nice fresh green cabbage, because when you're dealing with the fine dicing of this cabbage, it has to be pretty firm. If you're using a kind of a Savoy or another cabbage that's pretty soft, it might turn out mushy. So try to use a nice fresh green cabbage if you can. So here I am taking the core pieces off. You don't have to be too fancy, just get rid of that core. And now there's two methods to making this finely diced. So you can either do it by hand, which I'm showing you here. Obviously very time consuming, especially to get it down to the consistency and the size of a very fine dice. But if you don't have a food processor, this is one way you can do it. So I'm just kind of doing a quick demonstration of doing it by hand. Obviously it'd probably take at least double the amount of time to do it this way, as opposed to some type of machine or food processor or a high-end blender. But we'll move on to that next step in a second here. Okay, so this is a food processor, which is my preferred method. Saves a lot of time, but you have to do it properly too. So you don't want to overload the container. Just do 4 or 5 loads full, and the key here is to pulse it. If you let it run, it's going to turn into mush. So just take your time and just keep pulsating it. So usually about 10 times does the job. Once in a while you get a couple of large leaves still left in there, but this is kind of the consistency you're looking for. You don't want to, again, go too far, because you're going to end up with a very mushy consistency. So I'll show you one more time. Just kind of fill it about 3/4 of the way up. And that's pretty much what you're looking for. And as you're stirring, if you happen to see any larger pieces, you can take them out. But what we're doing here is just moving everything to the top from the bottom. So all your carrot and onion. And we're just going to work that for a minute or so just to get everything mixed together. And this is prior to putting our sauce on top. So try to get everything mixed well together now instead of later. Okay, we'll move on to our other ingredients. There's our sugar, and here's the buttermilk substitute, which is the milk and the vinegar. We're going to add that after we give it a quick stir, and you can see it's thickened up a bit. And we'll add the rest of our ingredients, our lemon juice, our black pepper, our salt. So I didn't go heavy on the salt, it's to your own preference, but same with the sugar. If you want a sweeter Dixie coleslaw, you can certainly add more sugar. This is a, I would say, semi-sweet coleslaw, but there you see the mayonnaise. And use a whisk, and this is a bit time consuming, but give it a really good stir. Probably about 2 minutes of making sure it's nice and smooth. You don't want any lumps. But you don't want to run it through a blender or anything and create air pockets in that sauce. So just do it by hand. I've sped it up a bit here. And we're just going to pour that on the top. But again, the salt and the sugar are kind of to your own taste. This is a, like I said, semi-sweet. But if you're used to an even sweeter Dixie coleslaw, you can certainly add a little bit more sugar or honey. I've never used honey, but that is an alternative as well. I've never used sugar substitutes as either, so that is an option as well. So yeah, give it a good stir. It kind of looks dry at this point, like not very juicy, but what happens when you put it in the fridge for, I would say 2 to 3 hours at least, if not longer. The longer the better, because what happens is the salt that's in the recipe will draw out some of the moisture from the cabbage because it's such a fine dice. So you'll end up with, it kind of makes its own sauce. So I'm just flattening everything out here. And I always add some plastic wrap on top and just kind of press it down a bit. That's just more to keep it moist. Even with the lid on, I just have that on top. So we'll place the lid on and put it in the fridge for, yeah, I would say a minimum of 3 hours. All the flavors come together and you'll end up with a little bit of sauce on the bottom. So you really want to mix it well. This is after 3 hours. So you can kind of see this is the consistency that that you're looking for. But I think it comes pretty close to the KFC style Dixie coleslaw. So thanks for watching. Give it a shot, and we'll see you for the next videos. Bye for now.